Hey there, Limit here, the guy that spent 2 years crying over AI VTubers and the same guy who can't seem to figure out how to edit faster than his grandma. When I started 2 years ago, I was a complete noob, a naive idealist, an unemployed redditor who thought their university degree actually meant something. Oh, how wrong I was, because spending an absurdly long amount of time on this personal project of mine has led me to discoveries and realizations I would have never known otherwise. And today, I want to revisit one area that I've had a lot of time to think about, and that is AI personality. Specifically, how to prompt gooder. We're going to start with this prompt, which I had when I first made this video talking about AI personality. And although it looks all sophisticated and robust on the surface, I'll show where it falls apart and what I did to fix it. And at the end of this video, I'll talk about what I feel about pure prompting for AI personality after having done all of this. But before that, let's see what's actually going on here. This is an example of my very first iteration, and for all models we'll be working with, we have a system prompt for the model's private instruction and a user prompt where we'll put all of the conversational context. The system prompt here looks like any typical system prompt. It explains the task of participating in this conversation, assuming the role of some character. There's details about how information is structured, such as where to find the character details, Twitch chat history, direct conversational history, and so forth. There's examples for what they may look like, and explanations for what to do in those scenarios. And finally, I end it with a character and scene description, giving the classic never break character. The user prompt, on the other hand, looks pretty funky, I'll admit. It's a bunch of sections, each dedicated to some context like Twitch chat history, special one-time requests, direct conversation, or the latest Twitch chat event. These were all detailed in the system prompt, and the chats all have time codes to make sense of when things actually happened. All of this is given to the LLM in a single user input, and from that we get a single assistant response. And I'm sure anybody who's developed their own AI VTubers or even made AI workflows in general can point out the myriad of problems there are here. But it looked good to me, so I shipped it and just started streaming with it. And if you expected everything to go right first try, then I wouldn't be making this video. Let's address the elephant in the room. What is up with this user prompt? If it looks fine to you, then imagine this. You're an actor who's been tasked to follow a very precise script. Not only do you have to memorize all of these lines, but also the exact actions and expressions that should take place and when. But the writers decided your job wasn't hard enough, so they split those three things, the lines, the actions, and the expressions, into 3 different scripts with only numbers to tell you the order of things. This means, in order to act, you need to constantly flip through each of the 3 scripts to find the next number to perform, never knowing if the next thing to do is say a line, perform an action, or change expressions. This is essentially what we have here, separate scripts where the order of events matters. It's even worse though, since some of these events don't even have a timestamp, such as the latest Twitch event. Like, when did user 1 get 5 subs? I don't know. Because of how I structured this prompt, it kept donor-walling Twitch chat, acting as though they were never even there to begin with. Now, I could go on all day about how this structure isn't optimal because tokens can only attend tokens before it or whatever, but the important piece I left out was that I was using GPT 3.5. Yes, it was that long ago. And not just GPT 3.5, but my own botched fine-tuned version of it. This is a fossil by today's standards, so while we've been seemingly spoiled by the reasoning capabilities of current frontier models, GPT 3.5 struggles with these sorts of multi-hop reasoning tasks, and it doesn't help that my fine-tune never had examples of actually using Twitch chat. In fact, I'm pretty sure all the training examples outright ignore it. So yeah, I guess J.E. Eisen was conditioned to ignore you all from the start, my bad. But I thought to myself, I would just fine-tune with better examples. But one day, a mod told me 3 letters. IRC. It took me a while to figure out that IRC stands for Internet Relay Chat, and this basically is like the chat rooms of old. The Serial Port has a great video talking about it, but I'm not interested in the technology here. No, I'm after this format. It should have been obvious from the start, but putting everything in one chronological sequence, with all the chat streams, the events, the requests, makes everything so much easier. Top to bottom, earliest to latest, everything that comes after was a result of what came before. No more flipping scripts and no more separate sections. Still, with so much going on, I would need some way of discerning what was Twitch chat and what was a normal chat, and so forth. To fix this, I prefixed each line of the history with what it was: requests, some named context, or some name of some person that's speaking. Comparing the old to the new, I would take the new 10 out of 10 times 100% of the time. Not only is this easier to follow, but scaling this to more context is simple, and creating examples for training is way simpler. But on the topic of training, we would say this format is closer to being in distribution to the model we're using. The larger the difference between what we're prompting versus what the model saw during training, the more out of distribution it is and the worse it'll perform. LLMs are fine-tuned on sequential conversations, so it makes sense that this IRC style context works better than these segregated blocks of context. But to be closer in distribution with these models, we may want to organize each message to be its own user input, ideally taking turns between the user input and assistant responses one-to-one. But I don't want to delve too deep on the topic of the inner workings of LLMs, especially in this video, so I'll leave it at that. The next problem though is a lot harder to spot unless you've clocked dozens of sessions streaming with this setup, and that's this personality and scene prompt. Specifically, small adjustments to the scene part of this prompt can result in drastic changes to JEISen's personality. I couldn't really reason about why this was the case, besides this part of the system prompt that describes this description as the character. I feel like the model has enough reasoning power to not conflate scene details with the character, but the attention mechanism does wondrous things. So, to fix this, it's as easy as separating the two into their own sections. This is the general layout of what I had after my prototype refactor. And looking at it now, I could enhance this idea even further. Whether this would actually result in improved consistency remains to be seen, but using something like XML tags indicates the start and end of a section more clearly over standard markdown, and LLMs have had no shortage of them to train on. Now enough with the structure of these prompts, I want to focus on the actual character prompt. I've completely rewritten my prompt well over a dozen times trying to tune the responses, but it felt like I never made any actual progress towards something I liked. Personality itself is just such a delicate thing to paint with words, and is best portrayed through experiencing it rather than saying it. But I'm a software engineer, the complete opposite of a creative writer, and even after practicing character writing and being more deliberate with my attempts, I felt too self-conscious to even write a personality for something I was going to try and talk to organically on a regular basis. Thankfully, two mods came to the rescue and put me on character introductions and meta prompting. For character introductions, the idea is to write an introduction from the perspective of the character. You run into the character on the street and they have 1 minute to talk about themselves. Who are they? What's their lore, preferences, aspirations, and fears? But it's not just what they say, it's how they say it. Does their tone shift a lot? What's their mood? Do they have quips and catchphrases? What's their reaction to certain topics? And what about their choice of words and sentence structure? It's a lot to take in. And again, I'm not a creative writer, but that's where meta prompting comes in. Instead of writing the prompt yourself, I simply list the attributes I want and let an AI generate the prompt for me. All of those questions I asked before, you can answer them bluntly in some point form and let the AI expand on it. It's kind of like spec-driven development, but instead of code, it's personality prompts. My mod Luxinator actually made a tool for this, which I'll have linked in the description. At first, I was hella confused what a meta prompt was, but eventually I got the hang of it. And although you could do this through a chat application, this allows you to generate a ton of personality prompts and compare them head to head in these blind mashups to pick the one that you vibe with the most. With these new prompts, it gives a fleshed out example of how your character should respond and a lot of the information about them, implicitly and explicitly. Do note though, that the longer your character introduction is, the longer the LLM's responses tend to be. And also be wary that a lot of these base instruct models love to regurgitate words. These prompts are extremely high signal, and whatever quips or salient nouns and verbs you put inside of them get repeated to no end. At first it sounds fine, but after listening to it for hundreds of hours, I'll die at another more like joke or if I have to hear digital chaos. This is only going to get worse, by the way, since model providers aren't focused on social competency anymore, but rather raw task performance, infinitely feeding on its own slop, reinforcing patterns of regurgitation, especially with thinking thrown in the mix. And aside from those three, there's a bunch of other small stuff. Some models prefer to have their system prompts in first person rather than second. Again, that really depends on their training data. And models don't really follow instructions perfectly. Sometimes this results in unwanted mimicry and responding with metadata and structured text meant for formatting. But honestly, I would stop looking any further, because here's my honest opinion. Sure, purely prompted AI personalities aren't as bad as I initially made them out to be. In some case, you could go a while streaming with one, but if you're serious about getting a good personality, one with varied interactions, consistent reactions, and a personalized understanding of the world it's in, then pure prompting is not your final destination. It's only your launchpad. Until you've logged enough conversations and gotten enough training data to train your own model, use this to seed your datasets. Be on the lookout for when I finally upload my videos on training my AI model. This is only the start of this long-ass AI personality journey that I've been on, and I hope you learned something from the mistakes that I made here. Anyways, I'm finally back to streaming on Twitch at twitch.tv/@mylimit, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and comment down below with what I should experiment with next. But I'm gonna get up and out of your way now. Thanks for watching.